How's it going, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to be working on something that has been needing to be done for quite a while, and that is new brakes. So I know with the Sequoias, one of the popular upgrades is to do the big brake conversion or use, I think, their GX470 brake calipers. I'm not going to be going that route quite yet. I'm just going to be starting with some new brake pads and new rotors today. So hoping to get all of these installed this afternoon. I'll take you guys along with me, show the process, and hopefully it goes pretty smooth. As far as the brake rotors and pads, I got them from 1A Auto. They're a great online car parts supplier. I highly recommend them. These are the rotors. They are from, I don't know how you pronounce that, if it's Torque Performance. I'll put links in the description for everything. And the pads are also from the same brand, right there. Alright, so we gotta start by removing this pin here. Never done this before, but I think we should be able to just kind of, it kind of loops in down below, kind of right here. So if you kind of just grab it with some pliers and pull out. There we go. Now we also have to remove this one, this pin here, that's holding in these two metal pins. Now we should be able to take out these two metal pins. Try and help them slide out. And now we're going to try and compress the caliper a little bit to make these pads easier to remove. There are the brake pads. They actually do have a lot of material left, but these brakes have been really bad. The performance is horrible, so I'm gonna try upgrading them anyway. The next step will be removing this brake caliper, and to do that, there are gonna be two 17mm bolts. I soaked these two bolts with WD-40, let it sit for a bit, and we're going to try it again with impact. These are very, very tight, and I'm hoping they will come off easier now, so let's give it another shot. I'm back now. I had to go to the store. Alright, well, there's one. The torch worked, but that took a lot of work. Alright, so in my case, the rotor already seems like it was coming off. Yeah, it just pulled right off, but if yours is being more difficult, you can just hit it with a rubber mallet or hammer from the backside and it should pop off. But in this case, the rotor came right off. So if you get the same kit that I got and you're wondering which side is the front and which is the rear, they are labeled passenger side and driver side, but they're not labeled rear or front. The front is the one that only has 6 holes in the rotor. The rear has a lot more. The rear is also a lot smaller. So the front is this one and the rear is this one. Rear side, front side. And then they are labeled passenger side and driver side. Now it's not too rusty here for me, but if yours is super rusty, you can just take a wire brush and scrub it down just so the brake rotor does sit flush. Then we're going to start putting it on backwards. This is a very important step, but you have to clean the brake rotor with some brake parts cleaner. So just spray it down both sides and wipe it down. This is just to remove some type of film that goes on the rotors when they're in storage. We want to get rid of that, and we can use some brake parts cleaner to do that. So put it on backwards to start and give it a good spray down. Now we can flip it around and clean the other side too. So now the next step, we're going to push these pistons back into the calipers. I got this tool to do that. So I'm going to disconnect it here from the bungee cord, and then we're going to get those pistons back in, and then we can remount the caliper. I did also just put a lug nut on the brake rotor just to hold it in place. Here. Okay, that took a while. I just got these kind of roughly tight, not super tight right now. It is mounted. I'm gonna try and reclean this rotor because it got a little like dirty trying to put the caliper back on. Before we install the new brake pads, I'm just gonna go ahead and torque down these two 17mm bolts. They are 90 foot-pounds. Now they do give you a bit of grease. We're gonna put that right here and up top just before we slide these brake pads in. Just line them up so they're matching the same direction as the rotor. There's kind of the natural curve. Just follow the rotor with that. If you do buy these same brakes, although almost all brakes should be the same, you should receive all of these safety pins. For the top spring, just make sure you slide this spring and then you can lock it in. I'm going to use pliers again, but there are 2 holes in the brake pad. For this outside pin, you want it to be angled down on the bottom and up on the top, and then this hook wraps around and goes in through the vehicle side and out towards the outside of the car. So it sits like this. This goes around the inside, and then you just feed these through the ends of the pins. And this side should be complete. Alright, so I just finished up one side. It went pretty smoothly. I did have to go and get a torch. Just the 2 caliper bolts. The 2 17mm were super tight. Couldn't even get them with the impact or a breaker bar, so ended up heating them up and was able to get them loose. That was honestly the most difficult part. So other than that, everything went on smoothly. The one thing that I'm gonna do when I do the other side is just when I'm installing the caliper back on, just use a couple lug nuts to push the rotor into place like it's gonna sit normally. That way I think it'll just be easier to fit the caliper over the rotor instead of having the rotor kind of like, instead of sitting flush, instead of sitting flush, it was kind of sitting out at an angle, and that made it a little tricky to get the caliper on. Just gonna do that a little differently on the other side, just installing a couple lug nuts so the rotor does sit perfectly flush and the caliper can clear it easily. I didn't get started until late afternoon, so may or may not do the back tonight. I might do that tomorrow, we'll see. But for now, I'm gonna jump over, do the other side. Should be the same exact process. Alright, so it is the second day. I just wanted to give you guys an update and to let you know where I left off. So I did get the new rotors and pads installed in the front side on both sides of the vehicle. The 2 bolts, the 2 17mm bolts that hold the caliper on, were super tight. I couldn't get them off with an impact or a breaker bar. I ended up having to use a torch for the first time just to heat them up and loosen them, and that ended up taking a lot longer than I was expecting. I'm not sure if the bolts got seized up or if those bolts got over torqued from maybe a dealership that was doing the brakes last time. Not sure, but it took a while. After I was able to get the calipers off, putting the new rotors on, putting the new pads on was really quick. That part was really easy, but it just took a while to get those 2 bolts loose. So both of the new rotors and the pads are installed on the front. The one area I was a little stuck on, or just not sure, was after I put the new rotors and pads on. When the car is jacked up, if you spin the tire, it sounds like there's a little bit of rubbing going on. So I've been trying to figure out if that's normal, and trying to figure out what the break-in process kind of looks like for new brakes and rotors. No pun intended, but trying to figure out, yeah, if I installed it correctly and what that rubbing is. I'll show you guys a clip of what it's doing, and yeah. A couple of people have said that you just have to drive 50 or so miles on new brakes and rotors to kind of get them to bed in and start working properly, so I might try that next. Let's hope these aren't as tight as the front were, but we're going to start by removing these 2 17mm bolts. Oh, thank goodness. Perfect. And we're just going to set this on the rear axle just by twisting it. I'm just going to secure it with a strap just to make sure this doesn't fall. Now there are 2 17mm bolts that mounts the caliper bracket, I think. Hoping these aren't as stuck as the front. Oh, perfect. That one was good. Let's try the top. Alright, so now with all of the caliper removed, the next step is to take this rotor off. We'll see, hopefully it's not too stuck. Not too bad. So we're going to remove all of this hardware that's stuck on the caliper, these metal clips. Go ahead and pull all of them out. There should be 4. The brake pad's going to sit on these flat surfaces, top and bottom. I went ahead and took a wire brush, cleaned those up, just got any dirt and dust off of there, so it's a nice flat surface. So these areas and right there as well. So now we're going to clean the insides of these 2 holes, just spraying brake cleaner in there. I don't have any type of brush, so I'm just going to use a screwdriver, twirl it around and get it cleaned out. I'm going to put some grease on the calipers. Right where the anti-rattle clips sit. Just make sure the tabs are facing out, not in, just so that they don't hit the brake pads. So I got all of the anti-rattle clips installed. All of the tabs are facing outside. Now it's time to reinstall the rotor, and then we can remount this. There is a driver side and passenger side, so just make sure you have the right one. We're going to clean it with some brake parts cleaner. And now we torque these 2 caliper bolt brackets to 65 foot-pounds. Next we gotta try and compress the caliper. So I kind of tied it up here earlier. I'm gonna undo it. And then we'll try and push the piston back. Alright, so this brake compressor tool does not work. It is a little too big for this rear caliper, so what I'm doing instead is I took a C-clamp, and on top of the piston there is just one of the old brake pads, so it's a flat surface, and I'm just gonna tighten this, and hopefully this will compress the piston back in. So let's see if it works. Here's the C-clamp that I was using, and then I just had an old brake pad on top to hold the piston to give it a flat surface. So the piston is now fully compressed, and I believe we can remount the caliper onto the caliper bracket. Now we retorque these bolts, both of them to 65 foot-pounds. So I just finished up the driver's side doing the brake installation. It actually went pretty smooth. No bolts really got stuck, and yeah, everything went pretty quickly. The biggest thing I'm still just unsure about is the rubbing sound. As you guys just saw, I was spinning that wheel and you could definitely hear a bit of rubbing, but I came over to the passenger side. This side still has the fully stock brakes, and I was spinning this wheel, and if you listen closely, I don't know if you guys can hear that, but it's not as loud as the driver's side, but there definitely is some rubbing sound coming from this side. And this is with the brakes that were already on there. I'm not sure exactly who installed these, but I'm guessing it was some shop, but that makes me feel a bit better that even the brakes that have been on there and the brakes that have been working fine have a bit of that rubbing sound too. So if any of you have done brakes and rotors before and know anything more about that, please drop a comment and let me know, because I can't find a ton of info online about it. It's funny because a brake job should be really quick, really easy, but almost always when you try and do car stuff, you run into problems, things that are broken. And in this case, the parking brake assembly is totally broken. So it was like the brake rotor was like completely locked onto there. The only way I got it off was just taking a sledgehammer and basically channeling all of my anger and frustration into this project, into each hit, and I just went crazy with it. I knew the parking brake was pretty much destroyed at this point, so I didn't really care. So just went bananas with a sledgehammer, just as hard as I could each time. And oh my gosh, I'm so glad to say that it finally came off. The brake rotor finally came off. So since the parking brake thing is completely destroyed, now I just have to figure out how to remove that. I figure I'll just take it off completely for now, hoping that I can just remove the parking brake assembly, get the new rotor, new brake pads, all of that reinstalled, so I can at least drive the Sequoia. All right, so these are some pieces that fell off. I don't know if I can show you with the light, and this parking brake, it's gonna be hard to show you guys, but it's super loose. I have to hold the light here so you guys can see, but the whole parking brake assembly is super loose. You can shake it back and forth a ton, so it's completely like broken. I'm guessing some of the springs and clips and some of the stuff, these pieces that are falling off are all busted. So I'm gonna figure out how to remove this, just get it out of the way so I can remount the new rotor and the new pads and just make the Sequoia drivable. Really hard to work in there. Lots of the springs and everything are kind of behind the parking brakes, so you kind of have to just pull and push on a bunch of stuff, and I cut a couple springs, just wanted to get it off. So that's where we're at now. I'm gonna try and hopefully wrap this up, put the calipers and the brake pads back in. Should hopefully go super smooth and be really quick. I feel like we got through the hardest part of it now, fingers crossed. So here's my parking brake assembly. As you can see, it is in pieces. As soon as that rotor came off, so did a couple springs, a couple of these like washers, so it was totally already broken. Just had to finish taking it apart so that I could get these pieces off, but did get this removed. We should be good to start the brakes now. So I just finished up. I just got the rear rotor, the rear pads, the caliper, everything back installed on the passenger side. That one took a lot longer than I was expecting, but like I said earlier, that is almost always how these car projects go. You'll almost always run into issues. Almost every single car project I've ever done has gone like this. It just never seems to go smoothly, but the wheels are back on now. There is an absolute mess behind me. I'll have a lot of cleanup to do left tonight, but I'm excited to test it tomorrow and just really hoping that everything works. So, all right, so it's the next day now. I did get everything cleaned up, put back together, and as far as I know, everything is fully installed now. So the front brake pads, the front rotors, they're on. I tested those seem to work. The rear rotors and the rear brake pads are installed now too. I haven't tested those yet, but that's the next step. So I just took the Sequoia for a test drive, and it does seem like the brakes are working. The pedal still feels a little bit off to me. It's not super firm, so I'm not sure if the brakes need to be bled or if there's something else going on. I'll have to look into that more in the future, but the Sequoia works, the brakes work. It's definitely drivable. It just feels a little weird, and maybe it's also just that the brakes were so bad, so old before, and I'm not used to what a normal brake pedal feels like. I'm not sure, but I'll look into that more. So all right guys, so it is a couple days later. As you can see behind me, I'm getting really close now to starting the version 2 camping setup, overland build, whatever you want to call it. So stay tuned, because I will be working on this over the next month or so. I'm just doing some designing and kind of figuring out the exact setup I want to build first, but stay tuned because this will be coming soon, and I'm so excited for the second version. But that's not what this video is about. I just wanted to give an update to the brakes because I've been driving with them for the past week or so. The brakes definitely feel a lot better. Anytime you're going 30, 40, or 50 miles per hour, if you step on them, they do feel really responsive. They do slow you down properly, and they do slow you down a lot quicker than what I had on there, so super happy about that. The one area where I feel like they're not working quite as well as the brakes that I had on there before is just slowing down from about 15 or 20 miles per hour. So it still feels like it takes a little bit more force than I was used to come to a slow stop. You just have to push on the brake a little bit harder than you did in the past. But honestly, I'm not super concerned about it yet. It's only been about 200 miles on these new brakes and rotors. I did do the bed-in process, but I still know that sometimes it just takes 500 miles or so for the brakes and rotors to start properly working together. So not too concerned about that, other than just slowing down from slow speeds. They work well, and they're a big improvement from what I had. So this was my first time doing brakes and rotors. I'm definitely no expert, but I just wanted to create a video kind of sharing and documenting my experience with this install, and you know, maybe hopefully you guys can learn something from it as well, or maybe it gives you the confidence to take this on as well. If you guys have any questions, comments, feel free to drop them below or send me a message on Instagram. My Instagram is just Max A. Peters. Always happy to talk, answer questions, chat with any of you guys, so feel free to reach out. So that's going to do it for this one, but definitely stay tuned because there are lots of new videos and lots of new exciting things coming with the Sequoia build soon. See you guys in the next one.